everybody, this is Joel Tompin, and what I've got here is Battles Magazine number 6. Sorry about the glare, but it's real glossy. Battles Magazine is one of the newer wargaming journals out there, and I just want to show you the side panel of it because this is really quite thick. There's a lot of substance into the magazine, and here I am going through the thing backwards. It's just what I do. But it's color on virtually every single page, and there is a ton of stuff in here. You got reviews, you have variants for games, you have advertisements, opinion articles. There is a lot of stuff in here, and the entire magazine is 154 pages long, so quite a lot of stuff in here. It's not an inexpensive magazine, but you're getting an awful lot in here, so it does appear to be worth the cover price. The game does ship with the magazine does ship with a game. The game is, I don't really care for the title. It's called Into the Bastards, and it's a pretty cool game. It's a game on battle from World War I, which is notable because it was the first tank-on-tank battle. So let's take a look at the game that comes with it, because this is really the cool showpiece of the entire issue. The game ships with a small rulebook, 8 pages in length. Obviously it's a smaller format, not big type or anything like that. Black and white. Charts are inside the rules itself, which is not all that convenient, but again, it's only 8 pages. It's not hard to flip to the page that has the given chart. So, but I think I'm going to go ahead and make up a cardstock set of charts. I could probably get it on one 8.5 by 11 sheet and print it out for my own use, because the game is really quite good. Here's what else you get with it. It comes with a looks like 17 by 22 inch map sheet, so it's about half the size of your standard war game map sheet, and it's a map sheet of the battle area. Again, it's World War I, and it's notable because it's the first tank-on-tank battle near the end of the Kaiserschlacht offensives in Operation Michael. So, game comes with a half sheet of counters. Actually, it comes with 2 half sheets of counters. Here's the sprues that they've all been punched off. I say 2.5. Well, it comes with a full half sheet. This guy here, and then it also comes with this other sheet which got maybe 3 more rows, 30 more counters on it, and then it's got 3 variant counters that if you own the old Avalon Hill game called Patton's Best, there's a variant where you can drive around T-34 or an SU-100 or a JS2. So that's what these bits are for. Counters are nice and thick, so you can see them here. This is considerably better stock than your average magazine war game. In fact, it's a better stock than your average war game, period, whether it came in a box or not. They have a glossy coating, so if any of you, some people like to spray like a Krylon coat on their counters to protect them over time. These come with that already built in. The only other company I know that does that is DVG Games, and these appear to be about the same thickness as the more recent releases by DVG Games. So these are half-inch counters, not terribly big. If there's any flaw to the counters themselves, it would be that the print on them is a little small. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see one of these guys up close. Having a hard time getting it to focus on here, but you can see that the print on them is kind of small, but the real tiny print is not even needed in play. It's just for historic information. Each counter has a setup location on it, so you can put it on the map. Setup only takes a few minutes to do, and the only rating that you need to know on the counters is the number of medals on the bottom, which determines how many actions you can take during the course of one of your operations. So you're going to activate units one at a time. They spend their medals, as it were, to move and shoot, conduct assaults, that sort of thing. Now the game begins with a standard I go, you go format, with the exception of, the player is actually moving all of his units individually, one at a time, conducting actions with them. So if I were to take this guy and I move him around, I do whatever I'm going to do with him, then I would just kind of rotate him sideways to show that he's done for the rest of the turn. I do that for all my guys on the map, and then my opponent does the same thing, and the turn ends. But here's the cool thing. Along the bottom of the track of the map, there's this track, which is the Battle Chaos track. Battle Intensity track, I should say. And as units are killed in battle, as your infantry battalions take losses in the course of the battle, this is going to slide upwards. Every time your infantry battalions do an assault, engage in an assault attack, this thing's going to go up. When it reaches box number 20, there's a confusion marker, and that changes the sequence of play for the game. What happens at that stage is there is going to be a pool of activation markers that they're all random, and you're going to draw these things out, and now the activations, what you can do during the course of the term, is determined by the chit pool. And you're going to put 5 of these chits every turn. So if it's turn number 5 or whatever, you're going to pull 5 chits out. Turn 6, you'll pull 5 chits out. The chits that you pull out stay out of the cup until you reach a nightfall turn. During the nightfall turn, the commanders get some better control of their forces, and what will happen is all of the chits that you pulled in the previous turns are going to go back into the cup, and then you're going to go back to the standard sequence of play. Chaos marker or confusion marker goes to the 20 box, and then you roll a die to see how closer it moves towards the 0 box. So it can move anywhere from 1 to 6 backwards. Okay, the higher you roll, the more likely it is that you're going to run into confusion pretty quickly on the next morning turn. So the game's got some neat innovations there. 8 pages of rules. It's very accessible. And it plays surprisingly fast. It has 14 game turns. Now, in the first couple turns, the game turns will take a little bit longer because you're using the standard sequence of play and activating all of your pieces. But as soon as the confusion kicks in, you're not going to be activating nearly as many pieces, and the game turns will go a lot faster. There's also something cool that happens on turn 7. During the first night turn, there's 2 night turns, the second of which ends the game. During the first night turn, you have the Australian assault. So there's all these Australian units from 2 different brigades, and I should say the scale of the game is actually at the battalion level. So you got 2 different Australian brigades, and they're going to hit the Germans at night and actually probably recover a lot of ground that was lost during the daylight hours. So these are all the pieces to the game. As you can see, there's I've got them arrayed by division. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 German divisions against looks like the elements of looks like what 1, 2 elements of 2 French divisions. Their organization's a little bit different, and then 2 British divisions, and then the Aussie division, and then you have the tanks. So this is got some of the cool-looking German box tanks, and they're going to be fighting a battle against Mark IVs and Whippet tanks for the Allies. So you can whip it good, as it were. Game is really, really neat. It's a lot of fun. The player will need to supply a 6-sided die, or preferably at least 4 of them. As you can see, I'm using 4 of them here. When units are killed in combat, they can be killed by fire combat, which is shooting from adjacent to adjacent. Whenever they're killed by that, you have to roll a die to see how far along the turn track they go, and they'll come back into play potentially. If you roll a 1, or if you roll a die roll that's modified above a 6, then the unit is permanently lost. So there's chances that your losses will come back depending on the severity of the attack. Assault combat's a little different. You actually enter the opponent's hex, and you're going to throw more dice in the combat situation, but if you don't eliminate the enemy battalion, then the attacker dies. So it's kind of a neat amount of tension, and it's not necessarily a cut and dry decision as to what is the best move to make there. Units have zones of control, which are sticky. You have to do a special kind of withdraw action in order to get out of an enemy's zone of control, the 6 hexes around him. So if you're adjacent to this guy, you'd have to spend, I believe, 2 of your medals to back off, unless you're in one of your trenches. And there's trench lines on the map, and the map is really quite easy to read. If there's any flaw in the map, it's that the hex IDs are a little light in print, but even that's not very difficult to read at all. The map is really quite readable, very, very playable. Bottom line, this is a great game, and I was able to get a copy of the magazine. I created the Vassal module for the game. So if you want to play the game online, there is a Vassal module for it. You just go to the Battles Magazine website and you can see what else they've got there, as well as download the Vassal module for this very cool game. So that's Battles Magazine, issue number 6, and I'm going to give this one a big thumbs up. I'm really happy with this, and surprisingly so. I mean, the topic just didn't seem all that interesting at first, but there's actually a great article in the Battles Magazine at the back that tells you the history behind the game, the history behind the battle that the game depicts, and it's really good stuff. So if you're at all interested in World War I or in tank combat, this is really a game worth picking up. This is not a standard cookie cutter war game. This has definitely got some fresh new ideas, and definitely something you ought to take a closer look at.